Diane, you mentioned in our first segment that there was a, a feeling, a hope to do some of these recommendations on a bipartisan basis because they do deal with areas that I think there's some recognition need to be dealt with maybe different ideas on how to do that. But were there some areas that seem to have more potential for bipartisan legislation than others?
Yes. So, we held kind of our biggest hearings on areas that we thought were the biggest, basically, they had the most potential to find bipartisan agreement and to find actual policy recommendations that everyone or most of the people on our committee would be able to support. We had a wide range of ideologies on our committee, from the most liberal members being Pramila Jayapal and AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on our side, and conservatives like Byron Donalds and uh, Jody Arrington and Warren Davidson on the Republican side. I think the Pelosi and Leader McCarthy actually chose a chairman and a ranking member rather intentionally that were more centrist. So the chairman was Jim Himes, who's a moderate Democrat from Connecticut, and the ranking member was Brian Stile, who is, I think, a rather moderate Republican from Wisconsin, from Paul Ryan's old district. There was very early indication that all members were going to support an emphasis on investing more in children in our federal policy, because it was very obvious to everyone that the federal government tends to subsidize older people things more than younger people things. And that
Mhm.
when you're talking about economic potential, gee, maybe we should start with the younger people, since they're the ones that are going to eventually go to work and, be the productive members of our economy. So investing in people in general as a strategy, especially young people, was something we wanted to pursue and recommend. And then another area of bipartisan agreement, which turned out to come into law, was an infrastructure, more investment in physical infrastructure, especially physical infrastructure that very obviously connects to economic opportunity. Like that, you need good transportation to get to work, you need broadband access to get online, and that all these things that are important in terms of um, connecting people to economic opportunities. So those were the areas. So in terms of investing in children, we had, very strong support for universal pre-K,
Mhm.
strong support for paid family leave, and also there was a great recognition of how messed up the childcare market is. It's how the childcare market is a great example of an economic market failure, because the costs are too high for families to afford, and yet the pay for childcare workers is too low for you to be able to support your own family. So the fact that there's this mismatch between very high costs and very low wages in the childcare industry is screaming for a role for government to provide the wedge. You have to connect
Mhm.
the two, just like a tax drives a wedge between, makes consumer prices higher than the prices producers receive. Um, uh, you know, uh, an industry that has very high costs and very low wages, is the cure from a government perspective, is a subsidy that brings together brings up wages and brings down cost to consumers. And so there was very strong recognition that, yeah, this market is not a normal functioning, well-functioning, competitive um, labor market or product market, service market. And so the sticky part with all these ideas, like all these are great ideas. Like they would all say, yes, that's great. Yes, that's great. As long as we don't have to pay for it, until you get to the part like, well, we can't just, yes, all it takes is money. We should just print more money and spend on all this stuff. Um, if until it came to costs, anything that would be a tax increase or a spending cut, that's where everyone or someone, there would be someone for every pay for that would oppose it. So that was the challenge in our work, was that it was easy to come up with ideas that were very broad and general in concept. It was easy to make members, all the members, see, yeah, this is wrong. We should do something about it. But when you get more specific, as you guys know from the Concord Coalition work, it's easy to agree on the big nature of the problem. It's easy to agree on general, vague solutions. But then when you get down to specifics, like who would benefit exactly and who would pay the cost, then it gets thorny, and then the members of Congress tend to think that, once they have to talk about winners and losers, that's when it gets tricky. They don't want to talk about losers.